All right, we are live. The final episode 14. It's hard to believe we've done 14 of these, but back on Target Score Podcast Network, Target Score Vancouver. Even though it's the off season, I think you should still subscribe. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button at Target Score Pod. We're on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. It's Chris Wiggins on the sidelines with the Vancouver Bandits and the CEBL. Play-by-play with the Vancouver Bandits, Mr. Andrew Savory. Thank you for jumping on the pod here. And this is going to be a fun podcast. We've got Dylan Kular, president of the Vancouver Bandits, joining us around 5:10, 10 after the hour, depending on where you are tuning in. We'll recap the season, maybe look forward to a little bit of what 2027 could bring for the Bandits, but looking forward to that chat. And then from a national perspective, Donnovan Bennett with the CEBL on CBC is going to join us later this hour as well. So a jammed-packed final episode of Target Score Vancouver. But first things first, how you doing, my man?
Doing well. Summer, smoke's dissipating a little bit. Nice out here on the West Coast. So obviously want to send our thoughts, best wishes to everyone impacted by wildfires. It's been devastating across the country, but hopefully better days ahead. And even for Bandits fans, hopefully better days ahead. Still suffering a little bit, admittedly, bias aside. 3 straight Western Conference championships, 2024, 2025, 2026. Yet no elusive championship for Vancouver. But don't want to take anything away from Winnipeg. Hard-earned, huge win. What a great final. Sold-out crowd at Canada Life Center. How about you, Chris?
Amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, an unfortunate event that we'll get into, about Brampton. But look, like I said it on the podcast that night, if you're going to pick one venue, in one city to host one game in, I like Winnipeg. Canada Life Center, you get the, the professional feel of an NBA style arena. They had 12,500 and change, I think, for the finals. So, hard to argue with that. And the scenes were unbelievable. Like, it did look like an NBA atmosphere. Everybody I've talked to says it felt like an NBA atmosphere. So, you can't ask for much more, on national television and for the trophy up for grabs. But yeah, all bias aside, we all cheer for our own cities that we all work for, right? The Brampton guys, Target Score Brampton, Mapinomi, and Denung Balsera, they're cheering for Brampton. Joey might not admit it because he was on, the national stage for the finals, but I think there's a little bit of, happiness that Winnipeg got it done for Joseph. And maybe we'll throw him on here at the end of the podcast. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Tough to see the Bandits lose like that. What did you see in the Western Conference final with Winnipeg? Because I mean, clearly the size factor was pretty evident for Vancouver.
Yeah, I think I saw a team that wanted it more. I think Winnipeg, obviously, our thoughts go out to Teddy Allen. Really unfortunate incident heading into the playoffs, but that was a team that was able to persevere. I think Xavier Moon, that was a legacy game. There's a reason why the MVP trophy is named after Xavier Moon. He comes in 3 for 3 in championships, 3 for 3 in finals MVPs, showing you exactly why. I think Winnipeg under coach Mike Rainbow showed exactly what their supporting cast can do. You talk about those guards who maybe took a step back when you had Moon and Allen playing, McGowan's, Osborne, Watson, Gale, all combined for 32 points collectively in that game against Vancouver. And Winnipeg just shot the lights out, 56 from the field, 52 from 3, 88 from the free throw line. So there's just really nothing Vancouver could do from that perspective because Winnipeg didn't need to score in the paint. They were just filling it up from the land beyond. Perimeter defense wasn't quite there for Vancouver. Obviously, no Karnik in that game. Zimmerman's hurt. Jarkel Joyner's recovering from injury. Mitch Creek, obviously not really a consistent factor throughout the season. Kyle Julius on the bench. Is there a little bit of flux there? There's a lot of narratives, but either way, Vancouver unable to get over the hump. But this fan base is hungry. A successful season. I think we saw a lot from interim head coach Rans Brempong, 8-5 in difficult circumstances. So there are silver linings. But Winnipeg was hungry. They earned that win, and they earned this championship.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, all respect to Winnipeg. The Canadian guys stepped up, with the Sea Bears. I thought when you put the two rosters side by side, the Western Conference Finals roster side by side, I think I was a little bit surprised that, they handled Vancouver like they did. The likes of Jarkel Joyner, Mitch Creek, Tyrese Samuel, like these are big names. I wanted a little bit more from Jarkel Joyner that night. And you never know how much of that hamstring was lingering. Matt Bonomi, willing to do a live show in Wiggins. How about the bedroom? That's where I'm at right now, Bonomi. Be careful what you wish for. I wanted a little bit more of Jarkel Joyner. I think the James Karnik thing was a little bit mismanaged. He was pretty vocal about it on his social media. I'm not really sure, where the mismanaging happened. Sounds like it was maybe an eligibility thing. I mean, that was unfortunate because I think he did everything he could possibly do to feel ready with his heel. Look, I thought he had a fantastic summer for the nights we saw, James Karnik and what he was able to do. I thought it was one of James's best summer with a Bandits jersey on. So don't forget Dylan Kular, Bandits President's coming up. So we'll have lots to talk about with him. And, I'm sure we'll get into the Rands Brempong thing, but yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised to see that Winnipeg team, come in and lay the beating to them, but all credit to that club. Like Simon Hildebrandt, man, the Western Conference Finals and the finals, like that guy stepped up when he really needed it to. And, this conversation of like, are we going to change the Canadian rule? Is there going to be an American, expansion? Like, and Simon Hildebrandt goes, not on my watch, right? Like, let's invest in some Canadians. And this guy, goes to battle. Like 37 minutes in the final, 24 points from Simon Hildebrandt, of course, the game-winning shot in his hometown, 6 rebounds as well. Like a massive night for that Canadian. And the Sea Bears made me eat my words, man, because like when Scarborough lost, I thought for sure it was going to be Vancouver, Brampton, or Vancouver. And I thought for sure it was like a one-way ticket to that trophy for us when Scarborough went down. But it is what it is. And you got to give credit where credit's due. Winnipeg played their ass off, man. And like, look, it looked electric in that arena.
And let's give credit where it's due. I think when you talk about that Canadian angle, Hildebrandt, not just 24 points in that final, but also 24 against Vancouver, sometimes taking it coast to coast, getting and ones, but just the best season of his pro career, obviously just finishing up at Washington State. But this is a guy, comes from the U Sports pathway, ends up going D1, finishes up at Washington State, never shot above 35% for a season in the CEBL, obviously 23 and 24, took a year off as he was playing D1. This year shoots 50% from the field, pretty much comes into the playoffs, averaging 7.5 points a game, and just erupts for 20 plus in the 2 biggest games of his life, plus the game winner. Talk about poise, talk about someone you want to follow a Canadian lineage. You talk about the purpose of this league. This league needs more Simon Hildebrandts, and that's what you get with Canadian content. So I want to tip my cap. That was just inspiring to watch.
Yeah, and again, like I said, perfect timing, right? Like the conversation of the Canadian rule changing, maybe American, expansion, and Simon says, again, not on my watch. Like it's good stuff. And like, again, you want to hope these Canadians, we can build around them. The same names come back to these franchises year over year. We're going to see the same Winnipeg guys in Winnipeg, I assume, next year. Simon's going to want to be back. The Sea Bears are going to want him back. And, likewise with us, we see Dwayne Notice, a few years in a row, Shamar Gibbons a few years in a row. That's the trajectory and the direction I'd like to see this league go in. And I think that's the key to the success that we've seen over the last couple of seasons as we welcome in Dylan Kular in the waiting room here, Bandits president. And looking forward to this chat as we get going and recapping 2026, and we'll look forward to 2027. So let's bring in Dylan Kular. Good day, sir. How are you?
Fellas, nice to see you.
Are you a little under the weather there, or what's going on over there?
It's end of season. It's offboarding. It's getting players out of market. It's checking their housing. So yeah, I probably got a little sick from all the germs they left behind.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, germs, just putting it lightly. Overall thoughts on the season, Dylan. What were the highlights for you? What are some areas that you'd like to see improved moving forward?
Well, like 15-9, first in the West, and for the 3rd straight year, home court through the Western playoffs. That's a standard. Very few teams in this league have held. So we beat a good Edmonton team in the semis, and then ran into a Winnipeg team, as everyone knows, that was just much better than us on that day and went on to win the championship. So, I'm proud of what we accomplished this year, but of course I'm still unsatisfied. Like we think about these 3 great past seasons and not being able to pull off that championship. But you know what? Like being proud and unsatisfied, I think both those are like the right feelings to have after that season.
And Dylan, Bandits fans are some of the most dedicated in the league, just like the fans in all the other CBL markets, especially in Winnipeg, as we saw in that championship. We've been lucky here in Vancouver to see a few returning pieces and some new pieces this year. We talk about the development of a Shamar Givens. You talk about the debut of a Dominic Parolin, obviously Carnett coming in the second half. Amongst the coaching staff, you're still offboarding, you're still debriefing. Are there any players that you're already having conversations about hoping to see return, I should say, or key organizational players that you think reflect the culture going forward?
Yeah, I can't really like negotiate on the show, right, with players. So yeah, it's just completing our offboarding. It was a chaotic season in the sense, like we were there once again, and we thought we would go all the way. So emotions are high. To start talking about next year with players is probably not the right time. We have to allow everyone to kind of recover and get ready for their next contract overseas and get comfortable there before we really dive into how can we have been better this season. So yeah, there's certainly like a standard here with continuity. Like I think that's why we've been good. There's a core here that really deserves to finish like what's been started, like Mitch Creek and like Tyree Samuel now for back-to-back years, and Shamar Givens, and even Zach Copeland, who wasn't able to play this season but would have been a returner this season. It's you want to do it for those guys, you want to do it for the coaches, you want to do it for the fans who've been here since day one. But I think everyone's going to be quite happy with the patience that we're going to take now and reviewing the season and looking at how we can be much better for next year.
Dylan, I got to be honest, when I walked into the gym the night before the final regular season game to decide first place in the West, and who's sitting courtside in a hood is Kyle Julius. So that caught me off guard. I didn't realize he was back in Canada. And so when I saw him, I went, interesting. Like I understood that they were moving. I knew there were a lot of moving parts to his life and, where his family's at. But to see him be so hands-on throughout the last couple of games of the regular season, and also, be so front and center for the playoffs. Like what went into the decision to have him, come back to his head coaching chair?
Well, first, for like context, like he never left the organization.
No, I knew that.
So yeah. he stepped down as head coach to like take that CBA job, but he remained our general manager and was involved in like every single day, even with the 15-hour time difference. Like we're chatting or connecting for hours each day. So yeah, respect to him for doing that. So it wasn't really someone like kind of parachuting in, right? It was he came back. We didn't know necessarily when he would be able to come back. That was always part of the internal discussions. And yeah, like as a group, like we decided it was the best basketball decision to make to conclude the season. And we would obviously wished it went a different way for us. And like if we don't bring them back and lose, you're going to be asking the same question but in a different way, right? So yeah, for someone who's given so much to this organization, it's the choice we made, and we're like, with all the information we had at the time, we were confident in our decision.
And Dylan, you talk about obviously Coach Julius's tenure, multiple CBL Coach of the Year, the 3 Western Conference championships in a row, 2 finals berths. Through his tenure, like you said, he's still general manager of this team. Obviously, Tianjin and CPA, he's the head coach there. But he's hired a number of coaches as well. You talk about the Mike Taylors, the Dave Singletons. He's brought in interims before. We've seen Tanner Massey's. Midway through the season, of course, Rans Brempong steps in from lead assistant and becomes interim head coach, goes 8-5. Obviously, again, you guys are entering assessment stage, but maybe talk about Rans' development and what you saw holding down the fort in that 8-5 stretch, and what's next for him with the organization, and how do you guys look at the head coaching position going forward?
Yeah, like we still have to conclude all of our offboarding. But for Rans to take over mid-season like he did, which is probably the hardest way to ever get your first professional head coaching opportunity. Like he had no camp, no training camp installed, like for what he would do, and then to do that in the middle of a playoff push and end up winning some big meaningful games. I think we're also just so fortunate, like we had such a strong roster as well that he was stepping into. So like kudos goes to the entire coaching staff and Kyle and the people behind the scenes making that roster and setting Rans up for some great success. So yeah, no, he really stepped into it quite naturally, and he learned a lot throughout that process, and how he finished his tenure, at least for this season, as head coach, set him up to be a even better lead assistant when Kyle did return. So yeah, it all worked out really well for us, and I know it didn't go our way in the end, but yeah, for what Rans had to jump into and how he jumped into it and how he came out of it, I think he should be very proud of what he accomplished.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I was super impressed by how quickly Rans was able to grab the respect, of the room. Not easy for these guys to all of a sudden have. Not that Rans was a different voice, but I mean, in theory, it is a different voice, kind of leading you night in and night out. So, yeah, it was cool to watch. Like, you could kind of see the, like the roller coaster of like, okay, now we're kind of getting used to Rans, and there were a couple of bad losses, and then they were like, okay, now we're back. We're good with Rans. We're figuring it out, and what he said to me was he took so much from Kyle, and the one-on-ones Kyle used to have with these players, getting to know these guys as human beings first. And so, I mean, that goes a long way. And we'll get into some fan questions, comments, before we wrap up here, Dylan, because there's one about Kyle that I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on. But first, like, as we look forward to 2027, season 9 in the CEBL, for fans, new and old, what is your message as we, approach the off season and it'll go quicker than we always think, and we'll be back towards next spring in no time?
Yeah, I would say on the head coaching role and general manager position, like, we owe it to all of our fans and all of our partners and people who follow this league to do a thorough search for who that next person might be. It very well could be Ransford if that's something that he's interested in, and he'll go through that process. I've already had, just when we announced Coach Kyle departing in July, over 100 people reach out easily. I have a database right now of people who are just reaching out, expressing interest in the head coaching position. So yeah, we haven't announced the opening yet officially, but when we do, there'll be a process, and especially Ransford, if he's interested, he won't have to apply, right? Like, he'll be able. And he's definitely proved to us in the summer that he doesn't need to just have that courtesy interview as well. He definitely proved himself that he could be part of the conversation. And then for outside the basketball, it's continue what we've been doing. Like, we're very proud of what we do in the community through the Bandits Community Foundation, and what we're doing this weekend, for example, with the Toronto Tempo. I think one of the first CEBL teams to work with a WNBA team in this manner, doing a collaborative 3-on-3 tournament. Yeah, we're going to be active as ever in the community, like we've been, and looking at ways to really enhance our fan experience. We're so proud of what we're able to do here at Langley Event Center, and want to really maximize the experience for people, and hopefully put on with one of the best products in the CEBL.
And Dylan, you talked about looking forward. Hard to believe season 8 already come and gone, and now it's going to be season 9, and the league only wants to continue to grow, innovate, support its players and teams. It's expanded the schedules, it's switched the timing, whether it's early or later. We know the league is a summer league. You're always dealing with players having contractual obligations, going to NBA summer league, sometimes not returning. But the fans have never been as dedicated as they are now. And one thing that I'm not sure if it happened this way this year, but I know during my tenure with the Bandits, usually at a championship weekend, I'm not sure if it was a CBL finals or the CBL final series, if you will, this year, if those debrief meetings were held. But is there any insight that, again, things that aren't confidential that you can offer, what might be on the horizon? What sorts of big picture ideas might this league be thinking about as it continues to scale?
Yeah, we're in a great spot as a league. Just 10 teams, 10 private ownership groups. One group has two teams. So yeah, the people at the table now are making some collaborative decisions on what is the best step for the league moving forward. And for us as operators, I guess myself, like, my job obviously, and presidents across the league, are to provide our insights and what we feel is the best way to move forward. And team owners and governors will ultimately decide, and we have to push their message as they decide what is the best way to move forward as a league. I think again, we're only 8 years old, turning 9, and like it's okay to have small changes every year because we're still figuring this out. Like we know basketball is one of the most popular sports in this country, is one of the most played sports amongst our youth and newcomers in Canada. And again, we owe it to our fans just to make careful decisions. And if it means a little bit of change every year, then it does, to ensure that we are making the right decision for the future and ensuring this league is successful because of the stories like Simon Hildebrand hitting the game-winning shot in the CEBL final. To have moments like that for Canadians, like when Diego Mafia hit the game winner in Winnipeg 2 years ago when we were down Tajay Moore. Like those kind of moments for Canadians, we want to really ensure are there, and that means we have to be nimble and adaptable throughout this whole process. So yeah, it's going to take time to, I think, really understand and find what is perfect for the CEBL. And I think we're all really excited to get there, and we might not get there as quick as everyone wants. But what I've noticed with the dialogue online, I think we're starting to see that people really are becoming very supportive. They want this league to be successful, and they're willing to be patient and ride the bumps with us as we go through them.
No, it's good stuff. Thank you for joining us tonight. One quick comment in the YouTube comment section. And I mean, I was pretty curious about this myself, even though I have had, conversations with Kyle, and he did mention to me that regardless of what happens, this would likely be his last CEBL summer. Is Kyle confirming Kyle is no longer the GM moving forward? Is that correct? He won't be next year?
Correct. Yeah, Kyle's moving on to Tianjin and with the CEBA, and yeah, what a great opportunity. Like the CEBL has created great opportunities for players and now coaches. Like arguably, and we don't know for sure, but it might be one of the largest coaching contracts a coach has ever received after coaching in the CEBL. And that's something the CEBL and Coach Kyle should really hang their hat on, that they accomplished what they accomplished here and now set themselves up for such a great future in the game. I believe maybe Ryan Schmidt might be one of the only other coaches who maybe is competing with like the value of this contract that Coach Kyle earned. We owe so much to Kyle and for everyone that's been part of the organization to kind of build us to where we are today. And it's going to be really exciting to see who are those next people that come into the organization and take us to the next phase.
It's exciting stuff. Looking forward to seeing, what the Bandits organization puts together for 2027. I have no doubts it'll be, the same culture, the same, tenacity, the same talent level, and, across the board. So looking forward to it. Have a great off season. I know it's, it feels long in that office, but hang in there, and hopefully we'll get you back on at some point during the off season if we do some episodes. Thank you, sir. Take care.
All right. Well, what about the fans? I thought there were fan questions.
No, that was the only question. It was the only one. It was Kyle Julius.
Probably a Winnipeg person, right? But
exactly.
Winnipeg fans are active on this podcast.
You can thank Joseph for that. Yeah. That's it. That was the only question, man. Yeah. We got to get going. Donnovan Bennett's coming up here soon as well. So
awesome. See you guys.
Thank you. Take care. There he goes. Dylan Kular, Bandits president. And that's some juicy info, man. Kyle Julius not returning to the CEBL, to the Vancouver Bandits. We're going to have a new GM, whether it's Rands or not. Maybe it's a new coach. Not sure. But regardless, it will still say a different head coach's name than Kyle Julius next summer. So lots to look forward to if you're a Bandits fan. And, most times, change can be good.
Yeah, I think with this organization, Kyle's leaving behind, I wouldn't call it a template. Everyone wants to put on their stamp, but if anything, he's left behind an expectation. This is an organization that demands conference finals. It expects to be competitive in the playoffs and the regular season, of course, and it wants a championship. When you look at the lineage, not a single playoffs missed since 2020. It's big shoes to fill. And so obviously when we look at Dylan, ownership, Brian Slesserchuk, Kevin Dhaliwal, Milan Mann, they're going to be looking at that database of 100 plus people that Dylan mentioned that obviously stems back to the original Kyle stepping down and taking the position overseas kind of timeline. And it'll be an intensive search, but it's also exciting. A new coach, potentially, obviously that new GM as well. They're going to want to put their own signature on this team. We'll see if that's a tempo change, a playing style change. Is it returning players? Is it less or more than we expected? So it's going to be a really exciting offseason. It's kind of crazy to already be talking off season, but I think fans are going to have to be dialed in.
It'll be interesting to see if it's like, I always like when former players like you look at Alex Campbell in Winnipeg, like I always like when former players come back, whether they're assistants, whether they're head coaches, and clearly there's a couple of spots to fill. Yeah, new sideline reporter. I don't know about that. I don't know, unless Savory and I are swapping
Chris
jobs.
we're changing jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Vancouver. I like, it'll be, the first time in a long time, maybe, you correct me if I'm wrong, Savory, the first time in maybe 5-6 years where Kyle Julius isn't really the hands-on builder of this roster, right? Like, it's going to be a brand new group. And look, I'm sure Dylan will have phone calls with Kyle. They're very close. Like, Kyle will want to contribute his thoughts, I would imagine. He loves this organization. He loves this area. He loves Vancouver. But you really, when you think about it, it's been a long time coming without Kyle's hands on a roster for once, right? It's going to be how long? 6-7 years?
Yeah, Kyle comes in, I think it was December 2019, I believe, approximately, that he was hired head coach and GM immediately, does so for the summer series during the COVID pandemic. 2021, he goes back to the Formosa Dreamers in Taiwan. He's remote for 21, 22, comes back on site as head coach in 2023 after the departure of Mike Taylor. Then he's the head coach from there on out. Kyle's the type of person, he starts recruiting. He's creating group chats with his players, his coaches, key front office personnel, probably in October ahead of a May season start, April training camp. Yeah. And everyone's dialed in. He's making sure they're on the right dietary plan, nutrition plan, getting their exercise and conditioning going. And that's 6 to 7 months in advance of training camp or the season starting. So that's, again, the legacy of Kyle Julius. And I think that's going to be something that the organization is going to be looking for, who's coming in with a similar degree of intensity. But they're also going to have to look at their own identity as well. Why haven't they been able to get over the top? I think at the same time, you could be competing, much like the Golden State Warriors were for a number of years. And then all of a sudden you have a swap of Mark Jackson to a Steve Kerr. Then all of a sudden you're winning championships. Don't want to obviously say anything about the legacy of Kyle Julius. It's the best the team's ever been, and they would not be in this conversation without him. However, what's the organization going to look at? Why haven't they been able to get over the hump? Enjoy the success, but what's the missing piece?
It's good stuff. Yeah, very exciting. As I've mentioned, looking forward to 2027 and what that all comes together for Vancouver. Let's bring in Donnovan Bennett joining us to wrap up Target Score Vancouver this evening from the CEBL on CBC Sports. Donnovan Bennett coming up right now. Hello, sir. How are you? Gray sweater, Toronto Tempo, and I'm going to steal a line from you. I'm going to be the pass first point guard tonight. How's that?
Love it. Thank you for having me. I hope my Wi-Fi is okay, that I'm not interrupted by a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old just out of cottage trying to find some space. But love the pod. I'd love to be on with you dudes.
No worries, man. No worries. Enjoy the vacay. We'll keep it short for you. Your thoughts on the first, your first year through the CEBL on CBC Sports. How great was it for you?
Great's the operative word, man. I loved it. Listen, I didn't have many expectations going in. Obviously, I was aware of the league, was a fan of the league, was a consumer of the league. I mentioned my kids. It was just a great way in the summer to kill some time and some energy with them. And, affordable. They love the target score. They love the math. They love the fact that there's going to be a game winner at the end. So that was really my exposure to the league. But then being able to be a part of the coverage with it coming back to CBC Sports, and then thankfully thinking of me as someone who could shepherd it and teaming up with, Javon and Tamika and Coach Razzo and Samara Tatum and Pete Ruckazer and Rash Vidani, and then everyone, on sites in the markets who really and truly know the sport and the league inside and out and have helped build it to where it is now, like yourself and S and Toronto and Joy. In Winnipeg, on and on and on. So yeah, it was fun, man. So many good stories, so many good people, and really, what I loved was like the sub economy around basketball in our country. Right? It's not just the players; it's the athletic therapists, the general managers, the people in marketing and ticket ops and basketball ops. So yeah, it was a fun, quick, intense, up and down ride. It was a bit of a reality show. I don't know if maybe on CBC Gem in a couple of years, we can have like a Drive to Survive, starting five, full swing-esque series that that showcased everything that happens in the CEBL. I certainly would be a consumer, but yeah, it was fun to be a part of.
And Donovan, I'm interested. Obviously, a journalist with your pedigree comes in this year, and you're following the storylines. Obviously, you followed this league for a number of years since its inception. I'm interested in your thoughts on the fan base, because now that you're obviously involved in those Nationals telecasts, you're also on the receiving end of what the fans are saying. You're following the storylines. You're seeing their dedication. Teddy goes down. Xavier Moon comes back. Every market has its pieces. You're talking to Tyrese out here in Vancouver. What did you notice about the fans and how they feel about this league, and what storylines from this year kind of stuck out to you?
I noticed with the fans, like they're active, small but mighty and growing. I like to be a little bit messy sometimes, a little bit toxic, but that's sports, right? Like that's, I think we can't shy away from, the stories that maybe aren't so pristine and clean. Let's use the NBA as an example. I remember when I was a senior writer at Sportsnet, we would write columns and stories, and the ones that did the most traction are like, trade rumors, thoughts, that pettiness online between players. Sometimes, right, like if you're a Zion Williamson fan, like from women to players, right? Like that's part of the interest in sports, right? It's not just about the X's and O's. So yeah, I loved how engaged they were, and obviously you guys had a string of sellouts and just big crowds in general. In BC, what Winnipeg did, historically coming into this year, but certainly like with the final set the bar, for everyone else. And when you have a fan base, having people have like hard discussions on, well, what's our playoff format going to be moving forward? Should it be, home court advantage because you get scenes like this, or should it just be in Winnipeg? And until you get to their level, should they just host every year? There was a stretch where the men's final eight was just always in Halifax. Like you knew you were going out east to try to win a championship. So yeah, I just love the fact that we're having these conversations. Like no disrespect to anyone who's worked in any of the upstart leagues in Canada domestically before this, but the conversations were solely about like, one, is this going to survive? Two, like, is this some sort of Ponzi scheme to like clean money? Because like the math is not mathing. Like there was no real legitimate business case of sustainability. So the fact that these are the conversations that we're having, it's amazing. Like, is it perfect? No. Is there lots of room for improvement? Yes, 100%. Is it precarious? And just because you've had 8 years of building, like, could you make a couple wrong moves and set yourself back? 100%. But that's sports in Canada. So yeah, I love the fact that the fans are not just thinking about my team, my player. The conversations that they want to weigh in are about the health and growth of the league moving forward.
Donovan, lots of rumors swirling, with the league, the Canadian rule. We've seen maybe talk of U.S. expansion. 2 years ago, 70% of the league was Canadian. Now 30%. A Canadian athlete yourself. I'm curious to know where your thoughts are at with, the Canadian rule, and should we hang on to that and, invest in Canadian players first?
So I preface this by saying I'm not an expert. I don't have a business degree. I haven't seen the books of the CBL or the clubs. I don't know what their 5-year strat plan is. So, it's easy for me to come off the top rope and be like, this is what you need to do, and this is what makes sense. Having said that, like, my opinion is clear. I at this point, I don't think they're rumors anymore. They've been substantiated by so many people who would know, who were saying this out of fear that, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. Whether or not they happen, who knows? But it's certainly something that's been up for serious conversation. Let's just look at the name of the league, Canadian Elite Basketball League, right? Like at its forefront, it has to be Canadian. Let's just look at why I'm involved. The CBC, it like literally has a mandate to showcase Canadian sport and tell Canadian stories. So, if there is, let's use U.S. expansion, and we're talking about the Shreveport Honey Badgers, not the Brampton Honey Badgers, That's a lot less interesting for the CBC as a broadcaster. And then again, I don't want to speak for anyone, but if you look at other broadcasters, like a TSN or a Bell, uh, they've got CanCon mandates where they have to show, X amount of Canadian content throughout a year to keep their license. And I mean, some would argue if the league is mostly Americans and there are teams that are American, at what point is that no longer CanCon? So I would say it's very clear. Listen, if we want to talk about salaries and where the cap should be, if there should be a cap at all, if the Asper brothers just want to go ham and spend whatever they want, and if that makes business sense for them or not, and it makes their business sustainable or not, sure, let's have that conversation to attract better Americans. I would argue to attract better Canadians, quite frankly. But when I look at what is going to be what keeps this league, moving forward, and is not empty calories, it's going to be Canadians. It's going to be players who come back year in, year out, who recruit other players, in whether it's Europe or Asia, or the G League because they had a great experience. It's going to be players that have a connection to the community, so people want to come out and see them. But it's also players that brands are going to want to be affiliated with. All of these local brands that are activating around these CEBL games, they want people in the community. They want people that they can attach their brand messaging to. And if you're talking about American that's going to be here for 3 months, maybe less if they're leaving for NBA tryouts or the summer league, or they got to get back to their team in Europe at a decent time. Again, I just think that is a minuscule short-term gain in terms of the level of quality of player, without the real health and growth of the long-term business. I love Indigenous culture because one of the things they say and they talk about and they preach is 7 generations. Any decision they make, how's it going to benefit us? Not right now, not next year, not this fiscal year. 7 generations from now, how are we going to be set up? And if we looked at the CBL in the same way, I think Canadians on the court, on the sidelines, in the business office are a big part of that.
I think it's really interesting what you bring up, Donnovan, and I love what you talk about the Canadian storytelling angle. And obviously, we talked about the import-domestic ratio, 2 Canadians at the court at all times, et cetera. You look at a team like Winnipeg, one with some pretty key Canadians, but not just Canadians, but U Sports Canadians. Your Hildebrandt, 24 points. Your Isaiah Osborne as well, who was big in the playoffs. But I want to get into what you mentioned. I think the fans know it, but I want to draw attention to it for the purpose of this conversation. There's actually a gap of Canadians that haven't yet played in the CBL who have the opportunity or runway to do so. I think you saw that with obviously the arrival of a Gordie Herbert and that big training camp roster where it's you have to commit for LA 28. And you can look at the list. There's obviously a couple of Canadians who have been in the league, the Marcus Carrs, the Cassius Robertsons, the Jackson Rose. Then at the same time, there's guys like the Kyle Wilchers, someone who's obviously a BC type of guy, but then you go down the list, you can see other people, Fondu Kabengele, Leonard Miller, some of those G League fringe type of guys, Emmanuel Miller. Those sorts of players haven't yet come into this league. So I'm interested in your thoughts on what could the league potentially be looking at. I don't want to get a strategic plan, but what do you think would help incentivize those players to potentially look at this league going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing would be money, right? Let's just be honest. And when you look at the way the CFL is set up, Canadians often, I mean, outside of quarterbacks and left tackles, Canadians make the most money, right? If you have a star Canadian, that's because the ratio matters so much. And if you have a Canadian that can perform at the level or better than American, right, they're worth their weight in gold. And so I think the economics of supply and demand of knowing I need to fill X amount of Canadian spots, and if I'm getting a Canadian that's putting in work at that spot, then I'm gonna spend accordingly. So I think that would be a big part. And I mentioned some of those brands, I'm not saying you go Clippers, Kawhi, Daktronics aspiration where you're literally moving money through other companies. But I think introducing some of the league partners, some of the local partners to these players and making a real connection and a runway for them to be able to make money, certainly now, but let's talk about 10, 15, 20 years. after their career is done, after they're done playing in Europe? Like, what does that roadmap look like for them? I think that's a piece of it. And one of the things that Xavier Moon mentioned about why Winnipeg was appealing was because he wanted to talk to Asper about ownership, about business, about what that looked like. And so in a way, he was there almost like as an apprentice to figure out what the exit ramp of basketball looks like for him, and and what managing in sports looks like. And so I think for our Canadians, that should be a similar thing that would have them somewhat interesting. I mean, listen, it's not going to be for everyone. I think you got to be obviously in the right mindset. You got to be healthy. You have to be at the space where you can continue to play at a high level and your body doesn't need a break. But all of the same arguments and pitches we're making to American players about come in, get good work, good physio, get your car, your house paid for, in an structured environment. All those things that are true for Americans are true for the really good Canadians as well. And like I think of a guy who I know really well, like Tyler Ennis. He's unfortunately had a couple rehabs in the summer, but I would love to see him play and cook in the CBL. So I think we'll get there slowly but surely. I think continuing to build on the connection with Gordie Herbert and Canada basketball would help grease the skids in a large way. But yeah, it'll take some while and some intention, but I'm slowly but surely think we'll get there at some point.
Donnovan, what are your thoughts on the finals? I mean, we were all so excited for the 3-game series. The unfortunate event in Brampton, it is what it is. But I mean, Winnipeg showed up, they showed out. Like, again, as you say, like it should be in Winnipeg every year. That facility is fantastic at Canada Life Center. But do you think the league should stick with the 3-game series, or continue to do the one and done for the championship? Where are your thoughts at with the 3-game series?
Yeah, a lot there. So finals, loved it. Loved that Winnipeg won. And as someone who hopes the league stays as Canadian as possible, I love that they were the test case. So like, listen, right? Local ownership, local head coach, NGM, not only Canadian, but from U Sports, a bunch of impact players that are Canadian. Canadian hits the last shot and wins it, right? I just loved that. And an active fan base. And really, when you look at what Winnipeg has done, and I'm not speaking out of turn, Asper has spoken about this himself, they follow the blueprint of what Niagara has done. Local coach, it's Canadian, it's a coach and a GM, a core of players, some really good Canadians on the team, engaged community. So when you look at the last 3 champions, they've all followed that same blueprint to success. So I think that should just be the mantra of the league moving forward. In terms of the game, like, it was an exciting game. There was a lot of exciting plays. I didn't think it was going to be really as controlled as it was for Winnipeg. Brampton gets out for that hot 7-0 start, and then from there, like, it was all Sea Bears all the time. You never really felt like Brampton was going to make a push to cut it to 2 or to 1 or to take the lead close in the second half. So it was an exciting game. I think 2 worthy teams being there. In terms of the format, I mean, I like it. I think people were immediately saying, well, this is an example of why the format doesn't work. I don't know. Is that true? Because, whoever runs the CA Center and Patrick Brown, the mayor, wanted the ice in early for hockey night in Brampton. That means that like 2 out of 3 wasn't the best. Like, I think if there's decisions to examine, I mean, there's a lot of people who say, did Scarborough deserve that much more punishment that Brampton got for that fight at the end of the year? And if that punishment was a little bit more even, or in fact, Scarborough was punished less, would that game have been, would game 1 have been in Winnipeg, and would 2 and 3 been in the Pan Am Center? No disrespect to Niagara, who obviously had a huge win and upset in the first round. So I like the format. I like the 2 in 3. I was hoping we got to 3 games, even though that would have delayed this vacation that I'm currently on. But yeah, I think the atmosphere in kind of game 1, 2.0, what was supposed to be game 2, was undeniable. if we had that again the next night for a true elimination game, that would have been even crazier. And like, listen, it's all relative. But Brampton, for a minute and 46 seconds, had their best crowd ever since being in Brampton. And there were so many people in the concourse because they had activations and games that never actually got to their seats until the game was over quickly, and delayed and then over, that like we never actually saw what that lower bowl was going to be like, because they felt like it was going to be close to full other than the corner. So what you saw on TV briefly before you watched, like, misplays of the month or whatever it was on TSN, and Murdoch Mysteries on CBC, like that was going to be the closest Brampton had to a real good atmosphere. So I do like the 2 versus 3. I just think championship weekend, you're rolling the dice on, is the team hosting actually going to get in that game? And if they don't, there's zero atmosphere. Can we revisit championship weekend in 20 years and build up a mini like Grey Cup festival? Sure. But like, we'll see. Like we have, a predetermined destination in the NSL, in terms of where the championship is, and Toronto got in the game the first year. We'll see what happens this year with it being in Ottawa. But I just think I'd rather the atmosphere and the crowd than having 3 to 4 months to plan.
Donnovan, as I want to make sure you get back to your night and your vacation here, but I'm interested.
You're
obviously,
fine. You're doing. This is time to put my kids to bed. So you're actually doing me a great service. We can just stretch this out till they're in REM sleep. I'll be great.
Perfect. Well, it's hardly the off season, but fans can't forget that the CBL awards have not been finalized. The nominees have been announced. Obviously, members of the media, team staff, league staff, etc., are voting on that. I won't go through the full list, but I'll name off the categories, and I want to put it on you to maybe talk to me about a matchup among nominees that stands out to you. So obviously you have your MVP, Powell and Allen, Canadian Play of the Year, Mitchell versus Samuel, six-man, Mitchell versus Stanley Davis Jr. or Baz Davis Jr., Depoy, Alex Fudge, and Kellen Tyne, and developmental player of the year, it's Mamba versus Mamba with Tim and Mahadi. So out of all of those, is there anyone that you're really excited to kind of chalk up or see come down to the wire before it's all announced?
Excited's not the word. I would say stressed. It's MVP, man. Like, Teddy Allen put a 50 ball on a real good team's head the first time that arguably the greatest player in the league was his teammate. Miles Powell was so consistent, was hitting, target winners time and time again, was the best player on the best team, the best regular season team by record ever. It's just so tough. Both win MVP in almost any other year. And so how you decide, I don't know. And I just think I've heard multiple people talk about both, and they've said MVP favorite. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's impossible. Like, how can you have a favorite between these two? Luckily, I didn't have a vote, because I honestly don't know where my vote would lie. But yeah, that's the one. I'm just there's no real right or wrong choice. I don't know if we've had tied MVPs in the NBA and the NFL. I feel like it's a bit of a cop out. Like someone was more valuable. But if there's fitting for one in the CBL, this would be the year. This would be the year. But you guys have asked me so many questions. I have questions for you, because there's so many things that I'm just thinking about this league, and I having bounced around in my head, and I'm like, okay, these guys, they're covering it. They would have better informed opinions than I would. So well, let's start in Van. I thought when I saw CBA Coach Kyle become again CEBL Coach Kyle, I'm like, oh, like they're losing. Like this is just some combination of like bad timing, bad juju, messing with the basketball gods. They're rolling, and like these are the words of Donnovan Bennett. So if you're not watching and you're just hearing the audio, don't come for the Target Score pod, fellas. But I felt like this is just too convenient. Brampton and Scarborough fought each other and made their road to win harder. Teddy Allen got in an altercation and theoretically made Winnipeg's rode harder, and Vancouver just put it on Winnipeg 6 days prior by 24. And I was like, oh, so the path has opened up. The Vancouver is on the yellow brick road to a championship. This is finally the year they get over it. And Kyle's like, I'm going to be in the province. I'm not going to be the first guy to lift up the trophy. Like, I'm going to put myself in that spot because I was the guy who got us, this close. And I just felt like, man, Rance had them rolling. If you have faith in him, you have faith in him. It's just not good to mess with the vibes right now.
I do agree. I mean, and right before you came on, I said, like, when Scarborough went down in the first round, I thought for sure that, like, the title was ours. Like, and I literally walked by my wife, Kat, who was sitting courtside on doing her thing, and I was like, we're going to the finals. Like, I was that certain. And I thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I mean, I'm a big fan of Kyle, so, like, I'm torn with that decision. But also, like, the guy I feel the worst for is Rands. Like, because he got them to where they were. He survived the second half of the season, and you kind of, like, I would have let him finish the job. Savory, I don't know where your thoughts are at, but DJ, I feel the same way.
It's almost a season within a season for Rands. Like, it's 8-5, but just the amount of storylines behind the scenes with that locker room. Obviously, Mitch Creek coming in, essentially just playing home games, only playing home games. Mitch Creek never traveled. That creates some flux for basically, obviously, a former MVP. But then Rands, like, he took his licks. Like, they couldn't solve Calgary, but he solved Winnipeg twice. Coach Julius got pumped by Winnipeg on the road, and he had a Jalen House problem. So Rands just was able to do certain things for a rookie head coach with no prior experience that I thought was pretty inspirational. And the locker room was a little bit severed. You had Jarkel Joyner having to step up. He was always intended to be a backup point guard. They were able to leverage him in a little bit of a bigger way. And to be honest, I would have liked to have seen Rands coach that game. I think at that point, you've just taken Winnipeg out in the previous game. Whatever system you had worked. I could understand Kyle would want a chomp at the bit. He was in market. Other things were going on. He was still the GM. It's an impossible choice. I can only imagine what the dynamic was in the locker room. And I'm certainly glad I wasn't there because I'm sure those conversations were tense. But yeah, I hope for Rands' sake, great things are ahead because I was certainly impressed with the situation he inherited and what he was able to get out of that locker room, knowing he didn't bring in any of those players himself.
I'd like to know if it was actually a collaborative decision. Like, we can all say that, right? And Dylan Kular is going to say that. But was it really, like, did Rands really go, yeah, I'll slide down a chair again? Like, I just don't believe that. And I know Kyle apologized to the room after the game. I've had a couple conversations with people who were in the locker room that, I've, seen after the game, and Kyle, stood up and was like, apologize for ruining it all. And whether that is the reason they lost, probably not. But I really don't buy that it was a fully collaborative decision that Rands was like, sure, yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
Listen, I'm married. There's a lot of collaborative decisions that are not collaborative decisions.
Exactly.
So, Rance, I think the key word is inherited. He inherited essentially a problem that needed to be solved. One, like, we're using the time machine. There was a suspension that happened, right?
Yes.
So he moves up a seat, right? Not, of his doing. He fills that. Then quickly, goes from a suspension to an exit that happens. So I got to steady the ship, make sure we finish first. And it was a bit bumpy, but at the end of the day, they finished first, right? That goal was checked. And then he's got them set up. We're a couple wins away from finishing the thing. And then all of a sudden now, like, because you've got some frequent flyer miles and your business is done in China, that I'm moving back now when I was the voice. So I listen, he might be a better man than me, but I would have felt the type of way. So that's tough. Here, okay, I got another one for you.
I was gonna say, you probably have a couple, so go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Next one.
Will we ever see a CEBL game in Brampton again? Maybe will and should would be the preface to that, because it was uphill to start. They put out an Instagram post and it was like, we thank the 21,000 fans that we had this year. And I looked at it, I was like, I think we should have left that in the drafts, because like Winnipeg just had 12,000 in one night, Like, so let's not celebrate 21,000
Why are we highlighting that?
for a year, which
Yeah.
I mean, I get because it's an improvement, but the fact that it's an improvement, right, is telling. And this was a good team. Like they had obviously they hit the stretch in the middle of the year where they were 2-10 and lost 5 straight, but ultimately it was a good, exciting team. And like it's not like they're struggling for smart minds or investment. Like their front office is set up, arguably better than anyone in the league. So it's not about capability. I just wonder if what was if we're being honest, a contingency plan because of the arena situation in Hamilton not going as planned. Just wonder, like, if we just go back to Hamilton because the arena looks real nice right now, or elsewhere. It just doesn't seem to, despite a bunch of good people putting in a good effort, doesn't seem to have worked at the level that it has elsewhere. And to me, like the ice condensation gate, it was just icing on the cake. Like it was nobody's fault in terms of the organization of the league, technically, but ultimately you're responsible at the end of the day. And it's a symptomatic of a much bigger issue. So yeah, I mean, I guess I led the witness and kind of, gave my POV, but in your opinion, like, should there be another season in Brampton?
I will say I'd like to see it. I always was curious as to why their crowds were so bad. Like even in the even in the first round in the playoffs, like they had nobody there. And I'm like, why doesn't anyone want to come out and watch basketball in Brampton? Like, there's the ice thing, like I'm sure there are deeper logistics to this that are over my head in terms of scheduling and making sure the ice is in or out or whatever the case may be. But like, did the league have a conversation with the CAA center to say, hey, can we not do this like the night before one game in Brampton for the finals? Like, can we make it 24 hours later? Turns out it could have been the ice for the Steelheads because like they posted about it like 24 hours after the CEBL finals, which was a bit of a gut punch as well. I don't think that there will be another game in Brampton. I'd like there to be another game in Brampton. There's been talk of expansion. I know Kelowna's been, mentioned a few times for a team out here. I'd love to see a team in Halifax. I'd love to see a team in Quebec City, like another Eastern team too would be cool. It's unfortunate. Like it was, but you're right, Donovan. It was like the icing on the cake. And I honestly like the statement that came out that was like, with the fans coming into the arena and the storms and the warmer weather and the doors being open, that created the condensation. Like, no way. Like, what about the 40-degree days in June that the doors are open for? Like, that's not the reason, there was condensation on the floor. Like, I didn't buy that. I don't know. You hate to see a city lose their team if that's going to be the case, but days might be done in Brampton.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like you talk about teams relocating, and obviously you had the Nighthawks relocate to Calgary. Conferences right now are an even split at 5-5. It would be pretty tough to see another team go to the West and maybe throw that off a little bit. You think about the I forget what the venue's called in Hamilton now. I can't remember the naming rights sponsor of it, but there's a new
TD Coliseum.
TD Coliseum. Okay, yeah. There you go. You have a PWHL team.
Yeah, it could be some scheduling issues now with 2 extra teams coming in, right?
Yeah, a couple extra teams, but I think that's a market. Like the Hammer is just always something that's been fun to promote. I feel like it's got its niche, it's got its loyal fan base. It would be an interesting story with it going back, but I'm not ready to give up on the whole Brampton angle because this is the first year. Like the East has never been more of a logjam. Like 3 teams at 10-14. First year, Mark Cuban's involved, obviously new president and CEO and Al Whitley as well. It'd be a pretty bold move to do immediately, but at the same time, to both your points, I forget whose media coverage it was. I think there was someone referencing like the unanswered emails from the team to the arena that hadn't been answered in X amount of time, and they were looking for answers. And it just looks like the team was willing to go on record and talk about things publicly about where they were at in their venue relationship and have that be in the public domain, which obviously creates things a little bit frosty from an optics perspective. So I don't know what direction it's going to go. I think that's probably one of the most pressing issues the league may have to look at. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the venue is getting busy, right? AHL team coming in, PWHL coming in, but that's off season, right? Those are during the winter
True.
season.
True.
So
Very, yeah, very good
if
point.
you're a venue,
Yeah.
like their competition would be concerts, because that
Yeah.
TD Coliseum it's set up to be a state of the art concert venue, but also they're trying to get all of the early spring summer concerts that can't get into Scotiabank Arena because those dates are blocked out for potential Raptors or Leafs playoff games that sometimes don't happen. So so yeah, it's fascinating. The other idea I have, because Wiggy already did one in terms of expansion and where to go next. You knocked that out. Is so we talked about the championship in the final, and I talked about more collaboration between Canada basketball and CBL, like both parties that need exposure and need marketing and need relevance. Global Jam and the CEBL championship together, one weekend.
There you go. There you
Pick
go.
a spot, pick a venue, and then just have them have a celebration, a jamboree of basketball where one is the quote unquote undercard and the other is the main event. And whether or not you're coming to see Canada versus Kentucky, or you're coming to see uh River
Yeah.
Lions
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
versus Sea Bears.
yeah,
Like,
like, or Carlton
come one,
versus
come
some. Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. 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 I mean, I agree. I think it would be cool to have an all-star game too, or a CBL all-star game, similar, similar setup where it's like a one, like a neutral site game. Maybe we,
Canadians versus Americans.
yeah, there you go. Canadians versus Americans. Like we squeeze that in at the, the midway point of the season. Yeah, I'm all for something like that. Donovan, I'm curious. I want to know what you think about the announcers for the national games not being in the venue.
Yeah, I love that you asked this. And
Yeah.
and I saw comments come up at some point about it, and I wanted to address. And I know it's been a running piece of conversation online and on your pods, and it's a fair question. It's one that I would have. And listen, I'm I'm not going to put on a CBC cape because I mean I don't really personally care that much, and I would have loved to be in venue. But like, here's the reality from the way I see it. Everything is about dollars and cents. It's about budget. And whether it's TSN and or CBC doing these games, doing those rights and having those rights deals and giving the league and their sponsors exposure, but also putting, if we're using CBC as an example, putting the league on channel 6, like as soon as you plug your TV in, you get it nationally, and not putting on whatever other programming they would have aired, and thus whatever ad revenue they would have got given the ratings for that show. So there's a calculation there, like anything. And there's just what is the budget in terms of what you're going to do. So I'll give a bit of background. We only got to see it for one game, but for the playoffs, CBC spent more on like more cameras, more angles, more looks, and a camera like above the basket, that type of thing, because they wanted to increase the production value of the finals. These are decisions that are made kind of above and beyond what's in their agreement with the league. But in terms of doing things on site, like, would it be better? Would it be ideal? Sure. But you're talking about flights, per diem, costs on site. Again, and a lot of people are watching this being like, oh, you mean like how professional sports is called? Like, yeah, 100%. But that cost is coming from somewhere. So in a league where there's, to be honest, limited revenue, and with owners who are deciding, how much do I want to spend now and invest? How much am I willing, quite frankly, to lose right now to build this up? It's just a math equation. Is that additional cost worth it? Is the difference negligible, or is that money better spent on paying Chris Wiggins more, or paying our players more, or paying more in marketing and promotion, or having more security guards, or being able to fly in the best officiating crew and not just have to deal with local officials for said game? Like, all of these things come into play. And so it literally, it's just an Excel spreadsheet where someone decided, well, we're willing to invest to this level and we're not. And CBC decided, well, based on the return on investment, this is what we're going to do. It's not CEBL unique. It's a similar approach for the NSL, which is similar level property on CBC and on TSN. Quite frankly, it's a similar approach, like for many Olympic sports. the vast majority of medals that were called from a booth in Toronto. So it's just kind of the realities of the economics of that level of sport right now. Can we grow and can we get to a place where they're in the building? Both, first off, the play-by-play in color for sure. Hopefully, the studio as well. Like potentially, hopefully, maybe it's next year. But I know the rationale behind it, and it's not just like we don't care, we don't want to send them. And Chris has been a part of it. When you look at the amount of time that people spend on conference calls and production meetings to make sure these games go well, like they do care, but it's a financial decision, and that money, it's decided between the CBL, CBC, is better used, allocated elsewhere for now. So we don't have to necessarily love the decision, but that's what it's rooted in, and maybe hopefully sometime in the near future we don't get there. If we use the PWHL as an example, their play-by-play and their color are on site because the league pays for it, because they have decided that matters to them. So yeah, and then. So do you then use the local broadcast and not have a true national commentary team is one of the questions. Good question, Tyler. I mean, I think you see a hybrid where the stream games are local broadcasters. The national games have a national kind of commentary team. And so you have good insight for someone like Wiggy for those games. But you have, a national perspective on the games for the national games. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an imperfect science, because some people would say, I want people who know this league, who've covered the league the entire time, to be the play-by-play in color, and I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you keep sideline reporters on site, I'm happy. I'm happy. I won't complain. Are your kids asleep yet?
I hope so. I haven't. I mean, I could check them on.
No. I'm just teasing. That's all I had from me. Donnovan, you got anything else for us?
Listen, great job, fellas. Like, this is a labor of love for you, I'm sure. Not just you two, but across the network. But it's a badly needed property for someone who loves the league, is a fan of the league, but also wants to be immersed in it. Like, so that I'm doing my best to give great coverage. So I'm selfishly super happy that what you guys do exist. I know the fans feel the same way, and like it's through outlets like this that the league grows and that the sport grows in our country. So yeah, great job, kudos. And if there's ever anything I can do to help, let me know. But I will be
appreciate it. Yeah.
First time caller, but long time listener.
Okay, there you go. All the respect, all the kudos to Joey Slattery, man. He this is his brainchild. It's his it's his creation. He had been doing it in Winnipeg for a couple of seasons, and then, kind of knocked on the door in Vancouver and Brampton, and, popped up this summer, and numbers have been really good. What they did in the finals, from like the baseline of the floor, like looked very big time. The cafe the next day looked great. So hopefully we can see more of this next summer and in years to come. Sounds like there's going to be some more shows happening next summer. So yeah, appreciate it, man. And we will definitely reach out again.
Love that. We need one in every single market. Love
totally. That. Absolutely. Okay, man. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your vacation, and we'll catch up soon.
Awesome. And thank you for the comments and the great questions.
All right. Take care, man. There he goes. There's Donnovan Bennett. Awesome stuff. Like that conference, the journalist in him threw some questions at us, and I'm glad he did, because like it was stuff that I wanted to talk, with you about when he left. And it wasn't that we didn't want to talk to him about it. We just didn't plan to do that, and maybe we should have. But yeah, some really, really great insight there from DJ. And, as much as us broadcasters don't want to believe it or don't want to buy into it, it's exactly right. It's all about dollars and cents. And so that's what it's going to come down to. But yeah, I mean, and in terms of the Brampton thing, like I thought the way it was handled, I wanted someone to look into a camera lens and tell me why it was happening and why the decision was made. Like,
yeah.
I want.
It feels like we got the speculation version rather than the clear-cut truth. And totally. I think there's fans who understand the situation quite well. But again, it's conjecture until it's solidified with truth. Because I would say, again, from an outsider's perspective, It was likely due to the money that's tied to the overseas contracts that are the primary source of income that demand players to get on a plane 1 or 2 days after what's told to the new team is going to be the last day of the CBL postseason.
Yeah.
So you cannot extend by another 1, 2, or 3 days because that player's larger contract is obligating them to come overseas. That's what we believe. That's what a lot of fans commented. Do I have that as a cold hard fact? No. Like you said, if someone had stared into a camera and said, this is just where we're at right now, there's potentially no shame in it. It is a little bit of a tail between your legs moment, but I think people would appreciate this is where you're at in the maturation of a league that hopes to be here similar to the CFL 100 years from now.
I just couldn't believe that all we got was the social media post. Like all we got was a social media statement. Like Rod Black and Joe Razzo were courtside. Or no, Charles Kissy, excuse me. But regardless, there were 2 national broadcasters courtside that were there, that were hosting a pregame show on TSN. They didn't go back to Donnovan in the studio on CBC with Javon and the crew there. Like they, and they cut to whatever show they cut to. That's fine. But I was shocked that they didn't come back on the air. And again, like there's some logistics that are probably, bigger than what I'm, thinking about, or they're over my head or whatever the case may be. But I was blown away that we didn't get someone back on camera to say, hey, welcome back. Unfortunate timing here in Brampton, condensation on the floor, player safety, blah, blah, blah. Tell us what was happening. Tell us why the decision to play one game. I was a little shocked and disappointed to not see someone, of leadership at the league level stand up and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is why we're making the decision we made.
You could really dive into it. It's interesting. So you think about how do we get to a league that has the flexibility to keep players a little bit longer, not infringe on other seasons. You can obviously speculate, hey, how do we become a fall league? When you become a fall league, then you're basically saying choose the CBL over a second division France or a first division Spain or NBL Australia, whatever it is. But those are big dollars. Those are contracts that are starting to, if you want someone who plays first division Spain or NBL Australia, you have to have dollars that you're talking about 6 figures at that point. And we all know CBL salaries are not at that pay scale. However, how do you create a public discourse around that? You create that discourse. You tell sponsors this is what's going to take. You tell partners this is what it's going to take. You can incentivize further investment from those partners who can help you get there if you talk about it honestly and publicly. But if you don't, leave it up to the fans to wonder why they were treated in a way that maybe didn't rub them the right way. So I think there's some accuracy to what the fans are speculating. However, I don't think there's any shame if the league was to say, hey, you know what? This is where we want to go. We're not there yet, but we're opening up the conversation to say this is how we might get there with more investment in the league.
Yeah. This is why we made the 1-game decision. We're going to go to Winnipeg and play 1 game, but we're going to, we love the 3-game series element, the thought of it. We talked all season about it. We're going to do it again next summer. Everything's going to be okay. Like that, sometimes you just want to hear everything's going to be okay. But we just didn't get that. And then on the conversation of the ice, like, again, whether it was Brampton Hockey Day or whether it was the Steelheads ice going down early, like, I really want to know, like, did the league know that the ice was going to be in before the hardwood went down for the 1 game in Brampton? And if they did know that, like, why didn't they fight like hell to be like, that can't happen. We can't take the chance of ice underneath this floor for 1 game. Like, and again, like, that's opening up a can of worms that maybe we don't have time for tonight. Or maybe it's past, or maybe we'll read an article like, later this offseason about, opinions and more stuff like that. But like, I just couldn't believe, like, if the league knew the ice was going down and they said, yep, no problem, let's put the floor down and play the game. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I really think it was CBL Championship Weekend 2019 in Saskatoon at SaskTel. I don't want to misremember the situation. So if we have any fans from Saskatoon or who made the drive up from Regina, please comment in the comments. But I remember hours before tip-off, the wood was also sweating a little bit. And I was on the ground at SaskTel Center, and I think it might have been a recent arena flip, or what the situation was with the ice, but there was something involving the blades and close time proximity to CBL championship weekend. And I remember people with towels on the floor drying it off, and everything was being done. It ended up being okay. They got it there. So arena flips are always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it in the NBA in January. I can't remember if it was in Chicago or in Miami. It must have been Chicago, because I don't think there's any team other than the Heat that play out of is it American Airlines still? Anyways, in Miami, there's no hockey team that plays out of Miami, unless I'm wrong. But like, yeah, I mean, it happened in January with the NBA. Like, this isn't an uncommon thing. Like, you know, condensation happens. Like, we saw it, a game get postponed in the NBA in January with Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat. So like, it's happened before, but like the fact that the league, if they knew about it, we're like, yeah, it's all good. And like, even still, like, you knew about it during warm-up, and guys were concerned about it during warm-up, and you still were like, yeah, let's go. I think a minute and 46 seconds looks worse than, you know, way worse than like being like, you know what, we're not going to start this game, you know. And I would love to know if there was like, can we make this 3-game series happen? Like, could we go to a university gym tomorrow? It's not going to be on, you know, national television. It is going to be live streamed on YouTube or whatever. We're not going to have the same crews. We're not going to have a full attendance, but we do need to get this game in. Let's go somewhere tomorrow afternoon, you know, University of Toronto, York, Guelph, like, you know, Western, whatever. But just, yeah, didn't happen. So is what it is. It is.
As we look towards CBL season 9, I mean, all these things are going to be looked at. The league's got the right people in place. They unveiled the CBL 2.0 kind of sub-brand, if you will, this year. First year for a Ty as commissioner as well, obviously involved with the league prior to that. But they're going to look at all of these sorts of things. And I think it's good that fans continue to be active in the comments, send their emails, go at the league at social, because it creates accountability, and it shows that the fans are invested, and it shows that they care about the end product. So much like the fans who are on this podcast, keep doing your thing, keep voicing your opinion. And the league's only going upwards. Like Donnovan said, you can spoil 8 years of growth with one wrong decision. That is always going to be a factor.
Yeah.
But if the fans continue to be part of the conversation as best they can through the appropriate channels, and respectfully so, because there's some very hardworking people at league office, as there are across the 10 franchises, the league will continue to go in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, continue to stay active, continue to share your opinions, you know, follow along on all these podcasts. Hopefully we get some more shows next summer. It sounds like we are going to, which is great. Before we bring Joey Slattery on, the founding father of Target Score Podcast, as Matt Bonomi likes to call him, the FF, the founding father. A couple comments I just need to like point out. Vancouver's not going to relocate. They don't need a fresh start. These years aren't failure. Like, there's just no way they relocate next season. That's not happening whatsoever. So just wanted to put that out there. Thanks for commenting.
Sycamoose is hilarious, though. I'll give you credit.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. The Sycamoose Bandits. Okay, fair enough. Let's bring Joey Slattery on. He's producing for us tonight. There he is right there. Look at that poop-eating grin on his face after lifting that trophy. Did you like, I guess you can't really drink out of it, can you? It's a ball.
No, I won't lie to you. I barely got a picture with it. As soon as the game was over, we had our post-game show, so we had to get everything set up and going for that. So I did manage to get a shirt. I should have brought it over. It's over there. I'll get it in a second. But yeah, I got a shirt, didn't get a hat. And to be fair, some of the staffers on the Sea Bears made sure to give me to tell me to take a picture and pick up the trophy. So they took a few shots and a video, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, as you guys know, I don't really get
special delivery. Look at this. Look at this special delivery.
My wife was at the game, so here I'm just going to
go
my whole screen so everybody can see.
Here we
it.
go.
So we had the guard the den towels.
Okay.
Which looked absolutely awesome. I always say
man,
when
that place, that place looked rocking, man. It really did. Like, it looks rocking when the Jets have the towels. It looks great when the Sea Bears have the towels. Yeah, it's good stuff. Look, I know there are a lot of Sea Bear fans in the comments tonight, always watching all the Target Score podcast, network shows. So congratulations to the Winnipeg Sea Bears, to the fans, to David Asper, the staff, and right down to Stat Guy Ty and Joey Slattery. So, and also Joey, we got to wrap here because I got to eat some dinner and Savory's probably. There you go. Yes. And Savory's probably famished as well. So we're going to wrap here shortly. But we wanted to bring you on because both of us, I won't speak for Savory, but I am going to speak for Savory. Thank you for giving us this platform to do this summer. Again, I said to Donnovan, this is your brainchild, your baby, the labor of love you've created into this awesome network that spans, a couple of venues across the CEBL. Can't wait for more stuff next summer. So thank you for what you do, for putting this all together for us. And it's been a blast to do some live shows and to do some podcasts this summer, man.
I appreciate you guys, doing this every week. I know it's not easy to find the time and find the guests, but you guys are put so much into this too that I'm very, very grateful and appreciative for everything. And it was really cool to have the 3 shows this year and kind of build that community, have the group chats. And I know for us, we're a little spoiled because we get to talk about the CEBL a little bit more. And I think the one thing I want to say too is, having championship weekend here, which was kind of I keep calling it championship weekend because it felt like 2 championship weekends. But this year, having the finals come to Winnipeg and the guys from, the fact that it was let's not forget, it was an all target score final 3. Because Niagara was the first team eliminated from the Final 4. So the last 3 teams standing have target score markets, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We knew that we were going to have an all target score, matchup. And I was grateful that we had sponsors that were able to send me out to Brampton, and then the guys from Brampton were here. But I'll say having the live shows, and people recognizing Matt and
game
changer, kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Those are game changers, man.
Especially when you're on location and, having them in the arena and people recognizing them and saying hi. And, Andrea, who I know is in the chat watching this game, who brought gifts to our live show at the cafe with some Winnipeg staple foods. It was really cool to see everybody there and see people meeting each other for the first time because they watch and listen to this podcast. And interact on the sidebar and, making friends and making plans for away games and things like that. It's only going to get bigger. And, I love the conversation you guys had with Donnovan. That was unbelievable. So insightful. And I think the one thing, if they're not going to put people there, I think I'd like to see more money in the broadcast where we have, stable enough cameras and production that we can put these games on TV in bars and restaurants across this country.
Yeah, I agree.
I know it works.
Yeah,
it happens in Winnipeg, right?
Consistent production, consistent quality, replay packages, graphic packages, maybe a music bed coming back from commercial break, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like consistent across all the networks, so we don't get audio issues in Sask or, camera issues in Montreal. And I'm not calling them out. These are the names I'm using.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Everything that we say on these is out of love, right? The times we have to be critical, it's not because we're trying to be negative. And I think people really felt that through what happened. I think there was a lot of silver linings in the last few weeks of the season, kind of glaring what needs to be addressed, kind of maybe a bit of an eye opener of just how much this league has grown and how much people want to know about stuff in order to follow this league better. Everything we say is coming out of a place that we want to see this league succeed. We enjoy covering it. We're very happy and grateful that we get to do this professionally. I don't want to lose that, and I think that, we all have opinions as to what works and what might work, what might not work. But when it comes down to it, like having that live on location at the cafe, to have the 10 or dozen people that showed up, one of them coming in on their lunch break and rushing in during their shift to come in for a few minutes. I think that was Eric, aka XO204. But that was the coolest part. And I think this is a growing community across, the country. But I appreciate the vote of confidence we got from someone like Donnovan, who is a guy that, has been at the top and understands the need at the local level. And I think if nothing else, I know there's viewers in Vancouver and some in Brampton and a lot in Winnipeg that are now, coming across. And I'd love to see it get to a point where they're traveling to go see, the Sea Bears on the road in Vancouver. And I know that already happens, but I'd like to see it the other way around where someone from Vancouver's like, you know what? I've never been to Winnipeg. I'm going to just go out. Why not? If I plan it ahead, I can get a ticket for $200, a plane ticket and go see a new city in my own backyard. That was kind of eye-opening with Matt and Dee as well. They'd never been here, right? Even though it was a quick 48 hours, they tried to take in as much as they could. We're blown away by the basketball and seeing like what the potential is with this league. Again, Winnipeg went over the top on that game. It was the coolest atmosphere, bar none, that I've been in professionally. It was really cool. But I think,
we've had like comments all summer saying like, oh, we need this. We need more of this stuff. We need like very, very needed in all these markets, very needed in the CEBL. And you see some comments in the chat now about off-season podcasts, and we'll do some sporadically throughout the off-season as some news happens in our market, at least here in Vancouver. Joey, I know you got some like U Sports stuff planned. But can you give us like a little sneak peek of like what markets might be coming to Target Score Network next summer, or is that still in the works?
It's still in the works, but I mean, let's be real. Like what Donnovan said is exactly what we're trying to do is build this similar in every market, right? I think this year you guys set the blueprint. I know the Winnipeg podcast has been around for 4 years, but listen, we did a pivot in the middle of the year, guys. You were right there for it. It was an opportunity that presented itself to try something new, and it seem to work, and talking with people that are in the comments right now, talking to them at the arena or in DMs of just how much they enjoy the live aspect. I did not realize that it would create such a community, and it still serves the podcast, right? We still bring the values of the recorded podcast. We just get to interact with you a little bit more, but it still goes in podcast form. Our podcast numbers are still strong. And I think what we're realizing is this is always evolving. And as much as we're seeing that from a digital coverage level, it's kind of the same thing for the CEBL and the broadcast and, the content that people want to see. Some of the content was great. It just was kind of misplaced, right? I always love CEBL Weekly, but it would have been a nice complement to something like this, where you talk more basketball, you talk about the game, figure out why the players are worth watching and why it's worth seeing what shoes they wear or what clothes they wear, because I know they're great basketball players. I know that Xavier Moon is one of the greatest players ever to play in the CEBL and is an NBA caliber guard who, can change the game, based on what's needed. And then when I see him walking in with those shoes, I'm like, oh, that's the dude who was doing all those fancy lay-ins and those nice passes or those nice dunks, whatever. But I think the in terms of the expansion, Scarborough is definitely up there. Would love to get in Alberta. Edmonton and Calgary both have diehard fan bases. Niagara is another one, right? I mean, Niagara is probably the best following, them and maybe Montreal in the East. Montreal's another one. Every market deserves one. It's really hard to do.
Agreed.
Hopefully next year with the sponsors that jumped on late this year, we might be able to get a little bit more backing, and then we can, do this right, because it's tough. 3 shows was a lot to do a lot of stuff.
You might need to start hiring some editors, man. You might need to start hiring some editors if we go league wide.
100%. So, that's the dream. But, next year we'll see where it expands. Nothing confirmed yet, but there will definitely be. What does Bonomi say?
And to you, Matt Bonomi, much peace and love to the TSP community in Brampton as well. Bonomi and D, great stuff all season long. So, Joey, thank you. Glad you could jump on here briefly. This guy is married. My co-host is now married, so he's got to go cook dinner for his wife now. So we got to wrap this thing. So do I. Thanks for tuning in here on the last episode. Savory, thank you for jumping in on this kind of like, we tried the one episode without you. It just wasn't the same. So you are an encyclopedia with CEBL knowledge.